Hey guys, how the hell are you? Time for a new unbiased gear review on this, the Sirena 3 from Howl Guitars. So first, let's go over the specs of this instrument. We have a Korina body with a Korina top, a set roasted maple neck with a roasted maple fingerboard that is bound with 22 silver nickel frets. We have a bone nut, and we also have Tonepros tuners and a Tonepros Wraparound bridge. We have a master volume that has a push-pull coil split, and we also have a custom-designed Alnico V pickup for this guitar. So I first became aware of this company through Instagram. I follow a lot of different guitar companies and luthiers on Instagram because I'm always looking for cool instruments that just kind of get me going a little bit. And this actually showed up as a sponsored ad in my feed one day. I was like, wow, this thing looks super cool. I immediately started following the company and was just hoping that one day I would actually get a chance to try one. Lo and behold, there was actually a couple at the Winter NAMM Show 2020. Struck up a conversation with Brian, and well, here we are. This company is one that was recently started up by Brian, who has his own distribution company, Marquee Distribution, and he wanted to create a guitar that has a lot of features, components, and materials, as well as the craftsmanship that you would find on a much more expensive, maybe even boutique instrument, but made in Korea so that it keeps the price down, basically allowing us to get a substantially high quality instrument at a lower price point. So let's dive into this and let's see if he accomplished that. So first of all, taking a look at the workmanship, this is a very, 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 very nice instrument. Going over the finish, there's no problems to be found whatsoever. The 3-ply binding that goes all around the body, all around the headstock is a very, very nice aesthetic touch, and there's not really any seams to be found whatsoever on that. The fret edges are nice and crisp, slightly rolled off, but there again, not necessarily a ball end like we would expect on something super high-end boutique, but still nice with no sharpness whatsoever, nice and level, there's no buzz whatsoever to find. It is just really, really crisp and comfortable on the neck. Speaking of comfortable on the neck, this bone nut, which that's pretty cool to find on an instrument of this price point. This bone nut has nice and smoothed over corners on here. There again, adding to the comfort. If anything, I would like it if the nut was just ground down a little bit more flush with the side of the neck. But that's me just getting a little bit nitpicky. It's one of those things that needs to be called out for the sake of this being an unbiased gear review. The hardware from Tonepros, the tuners, the bridge, which is a very, very nice, substantial wraparound bridge that allows for intonation, that also holds its tuning exceptionally well. So I've gotten a lot of hours playing it ever since that it arrived a few days ago, and it's nary needed a actual tuning check when I've been in the middle of a session with it. Now, it is a single cut LP style instrument, so as a result, you're not really going to get that awesome of upper fret access up here. That's just kind of the name of the game with this sort of body style, and this is definitely in line with most other instruments of that particular variety. Taking a look at the neck contour, it is a nice contour. It is a nice C shape, kind of reminiscent of an ESP Eclipse, in my opinion. It is not super thick like a Gibson Les Paul. It's just a little teeny tiny bit thinner, which is why I'm suggesting it's like an Eclipse. Also like an Eclipse, like some of the more satin finished ESPs that I find in my time, this is a very, very nice poly satin finish that's all over this instrument. It just, for anyone that's a fan of playing instruments with a satin finish, you are going to find a lot to love about this finish right here. One of the nicest satin neck finishes I've ever found on this. It plays like butter. It does have a slight bit of heft to it. Definitely feels like a traditional non-weight relieved instrument. It does have some good thickness to the body there, but at the same time, if that's the kind of thing that you like from these sort of instruments, that just makes the experience of playing this that much better. Regarding how this instrument sounds, this definitely was a very unique sounding instrument. Typically, I go for guitars that have a very, very beefy tone, something that sounds great with extreme metal, stuff that sounds great with classic metal even. You know, stuff that has a little bit more low-end response and not so much of a hi-fi tonality like this thing had. This was an instrument that when I first started playing it after it arrived here, I was just noticing like, wow, this thing is super dynamic. It's got a super crispness on the high end to the point where running it through my normal rigs just all sounded kind of weird. Run it through the Marshall valve state, like that sort of like meaty, extreme death metal growl that amp is known for was just not there. And so it kind of took a little bit of tweaking. Ultimately, I figured out that the high watt responded the best. I eventually got this thing to sound absolutely fantastic and very, very inspiring. It just has I wouldn't even call it a vintage characteristic to it. It definitely does not sound like any PAF I've ever really played through. It just has so much articulation, but yet just kind of lots of well-rounded tone. It's not super ballsy, it's just kind of present in all the right areas. I felt like if I was playing something a little bit more bluesy, a little bit more classic rock, or even something that I could get away with using like a little bit bigger chords. I just felt like this was an instrument that just was much better suited for that because everything kind of rang out crystal clear. And speaking of dynamics, when you kick on that coil split, that was just a very, very nice and sweet sounding coil split too. One of the best coil splits I've honestly heard on an instrument in this price range. Sounds really good actually when doing that sort of Yngwie-ish, Halloween Better Than Raw-ish style power metal stuff. One thing that I will call out though, and I did mention this to Brian too, in the future I would love to see not plastic knobs on this, because that is one thing. I didn't even know that this thing had a coil split until I sent him an email. When I was first checking out the guitar, I briefly tried to pull it up, and it was just so slippery. I thought, well, okay, maybe the reason why I'm not pulling this thing up is because there's nothing to pull up. But lo and behold, there is a coil split on here. It's just this knob is just a little slippery because it's kind of a chrome-plated plastic. But honestly, this thing has a very unique tone to it. I really, really like how this thing sounds. Albeit, it's definitely something that you've got to get used to. It is definitely something that, to me, sounds like a much lower output pickup as well. Although I don't have a meter here to actually tell you what the DC resistance is on it. But I would be very surprised if it's over 10K DC resistant. So with that, if you get the instrument and if you don't really jive with this pickup, hell, this is going to be your workhorse single bridge humbucker guitar. Just throw something else in there and be happy. So overall, my final thought on this instrument, this is an awesome guitar. And I'm very, very happy that I got the chance to play this because it plays exceptional. It sounds very, very unique, and it's just one of those things that once you kind of get used to it, it's an extremely inspiring instrument because of its quirks that it has. I look very much forward to seeing what Brian does with this company. He has relayed that there are new models that are in development that are being R&D'd. There's new colors that could potentially be rolling out, but it's all dependent on how this first Sirena 3 model with this satin charcoal and with the satin burnt orange finish that he has with how they do. If they do well, then there's going to be more to come. And as far as them doing well, I would definitely recommend you guys to check this out because I was very, very pleased with it. So Arnold, what are you drinking today? I'm so glad that you asked. Let's check the beer fridge. Today, from Ommegang Brewing Company in Cooperstown, New York, I am having Storm Crusher, which is a Belgian-styled quadruple ale brewed with blueberries and coffee. That sounds interesting. It is a 9.7 alcohol by volume Belgian-style quad. Let's check this out. Pours kind of a rich copper color with a rocky cream-colored head. Definitely some sort of peach and berry notes in the aroma. I would definitely say that the coffee flavor is very, very present in here, and I kind of feel like it takes away from any sort of flavor that the beer would naturally have, or from any that the blueberries would be providing. I definitely taste a sort of apricot sweetness in there, as well as a sort of like slight blueberry-ish tartness to it. Very, very slight though. But the coffee in there just makes everything just sort of kind of dry to the point where I'm not really pulling out that much enjoyable sweetness out of this. I mean, it is kind of a complex flavor, but I would not necessarily say that I'm that much of a fan of this. Not the best beer. So that's it for me. That's all the time I've got. Leave your comment in the comment section below. Like this video. Subscribe to this channel. There is lots more metal-oriented guitar content to come.